Hello students and welcome to this review tutorial for Geography 113. Now, in this tutorial, what we're going to do is we're going to create a thematic map showing us the California counties with the highest percentage of seniors. And this is a common task where you need to create a map showing the largest or the lowest quantities. And so in order for us to do that, we are going to have to go through a few steps. We're going to acquire census data from the census website. We're going to clean up and prepare that data to be exported and joined in an ArcGIS Pro. And then once we have that data joined and available, we're going to create a thematic map. Students should follow this tutorial even if you are not able to work through the Excel portion. Some students may be able to do this portion of the data cleanup with Google Sheets or with other open source software. Some students will have Excel. If you don't have Excel, however, I will provide you the data table so that you can create your data join on your own. However, if you can, I encourage you to go through the Excel portion as well so that you can become familiar with some of these activities. Okay, so once I open ArcGIS Pro, it usually lands on this page and it's asking you if you want to create a new map, a catalog, or a global scene. The scenes are for 3D data. Usually we're going to start with the map. Okay, you could also start without a template. However, when you create a template, it's a temporary file until you save a map or something like that. So usually what we're going to do is we're going to start with a project with a map, okay? And this is a project-based software. Now, one thing that happens right away is that it asks you, how do you name your project and where you're going to locate it? So this is important to remember because, as you can see, we have a path to the C drive, the user, which is myself, through my desktop. And in my desktop, I always have a file called GIS resources. And that is for whenever I am working in a GIS project, that's where my data or my projects are going to be located. You could also navigate to a different folder where you want to save, right? And so within my GIS resources folder, I have created a Geography 113 folder for this class. And so I'm going to select my Geography 113 folder, and it now shows up here. And I can then name my project review tutorial. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Notice how once I create the new project, I also automatically create a new folder for this local project. So inside my Geog 113 folder, I will also have my review tutorial folder, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and create that. And it's going to take me to this location, okay? So now we are opening on a blank page. Well, what often happens though is that we don't always want to select the folder, and we might just want to make a specific place, a specific folder, the default in our computer, right? And so I can select the default folder so that I don't have to create a new path every time. I go to Project. Under Project, I go to Options. And here we're going to see the options for this whole project. And then, let me see, we are going to General. And then here, when I start ArcGIS Pro, it gives you some general qualities. But here, the Create Projects. New projects are saved in a default location. So notice how the default location will sometimes be your program files within your desktop. And those are saved wherever the ArcGIS Pro software is saved. So sometimes you have to do a little digging for that in your program files, okay? And so here I have clicked New Projects are saved in a custom location. And my custom location is that GIS resources folder that I like to use for all my GIS projects. And so anytime you start the software now and you create a new project, it will go to your new custom location, okay? So this is something that I recommend that you do. And this is important because oftentimes we have an account on this desktop right? But the folder projects are saved somewhere else. Now, I want to bring this to your attention because this is something that has happened to some of my students, okay? For example, for some student projects, right, we might also have these cloud. We have the home here, which is where I'm keeping my projects. But we might also have a cloud, and in that case, sometimes your projects are also saved to that cloud. Personally, I like to start with projects that are in my desktop, where I have my GIS folder, and I create a folder for this class, okay? So come up with a system that is useful and easy for you to remember. Okay, so now let's really get started with this project. Right now, I don't need to work on my review tutorial, so I'm going to close this, and I'm actually going to go to the census website, okay? So we are going to go to data.census.gov. And while it is important to know that sometimes the menus change, you are often going to find the data in a similar place unless the page is radically redesigned. So here we're looking for table data. We want to find our senior population for California. So we're going to go through the census tables. So we're going to go to tables. And then once we are here, we want to narrow down our information. So let me go to all. Tables. Excuse me, filters. Okay, so now that I'm at tables, let me turn on the filters so that we can begin to filter down. So we want age information, so that is going to be under populations and people. And then we're going to do age and sex. So this is the first filter. So our data is starting to be filtered down. The website knows we want age and sex. That's our first filter that has been added. In addition, let's focus on counties. So now I'm going to go to geographies. And this is going to take a while to load. I'm going to click on counties. Since we have so many counties, this could take a while. So for counties, we're going to focus on California since this is a California related project. And I'm going to click, once this loads, I'm going to click on the all counties option because I want all counties in California. It's normal if it takes a while to load. There is a lot of data once you are looking for it by specific county information. So the first filter is age and sex, and the second filter that we're going to apply and will show up here will be the California, all counties within California. Okay, so the counties have shown up. And if you want only a specific county, right, this is where you would find that. But we're going to look for all counties. So this is our second filter. And we're going to add the third filter, which is by year. And so we're going to wait for this menu to load. We have age and sex, all counties. And now we're going to look by year. And so the year that we want is 2020. So let's scroll down, and we have narrowed it down by 2020. We are going to see, so let me now close this here. We're going to see a few options, and notice how age and sex shows up, which is table S0101 with 2020 American Community Survey 5-year estimate for subject tables. So that is the one that we want. Once I click on it, it will give me the opportunity to download the data right here. So I have to select it, right? I have selected it. download the data. I have checked off the box, and now I can download. The download option is for 2020 ACS. And I should get a zip file. Let me take a minute here to make sure I found the right zip file. Let me close this here. Okay, so this is the table. Select the table vintages. We're going to do the 2020, and we're looking for a .csv folder. So now that has been downloaded. It should appear here in our downloads. So let's go take a look. There are different ways to open this file. You can click on the downloads and see how a folder shows up, right? So we're going to do that so that we can see it in the folder. So this is in the downloads folder, right? And it looks like a file with a zipper because it is zipped up, meaning that it is compressed to make it easier to download and transfer the full data. And once we double click and we see that, right? And so this is the data that we want. We want this one specifically with the data. Notice that these files will also have README files and column metadata so that you understand how to read the different column categories. Okay, so what we're going to do now is, this is the data that we need. So we're going to move this to the project folder that we created, the review lab tutorial. So now that we have double clicked on this zipped folder, we have technically unzipped it, right? And so now we can drag this, especially the one that says data, right? The data.csv. CSV stands for comma separated value, which is a way to create tables. Okay, so here is the resources. This is my tutorial, review tutorial, and here we are. These other files have been created for my GIS project, right? So let me just drag and drop this. Okay, great. So we're going to leave this here for now in this folder. Now what we're going to do is the next step, which is the cleanup process. Okay, so you can take a pause here if you want. And so let's take a look then at this table. We're going to double click and we're going to start preparing this for ArcGIS Pro. If you don't have Excel, there will be a shortened version of this, and so you can skip a few steps. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to do the preparation, the cleanup. So we have now acquired the data. But look at how confusing this seems, right? We might not be able to identify all of these attributes. If you become a researcher with the census or with any agency, there will become a point where sometimes you are so familiar with the data that you can decipher headings, right? But look at how many headings we have, right? And so this is also for statistical error, for estimates. So we're not going to need all of these columns. We only need a few of these to create our data. And so this is a raw data set from the census. But we need to clean it up and prepare it before we can join it to our ArcGIS Pro project, okay? So let's pay attention to the following. I'm going to go slow, right? So what we need first is we have the name here, and these are the counties that we would like to display, right? So the first thing here, I'm going to rename this as counties so that we have a better idea. So these are our counties. And then in the field right next, look at this field, right? This field is a code that I can't really understand, but it does mean total population. So what we're going to do is we're going to name this population. Okay, and so this is the totals, Los Angeles here with a very large number. All right. So we have the GeoID, the county, the population. What we're looking for is that 65 and older. And so it can take quite a long time to look for that here, right? Even if we are able to read some of these, for example, right? Here's that 15 to 44 years. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the find tool. So here in this ribbon, we can also look for the find and replace tool. Okay, insert. Where's my find and replace? Well, what I can also just do is click here, right? And so here's the replace I had already used it before. So let me look for that find and replace. So what am I trying to find? Find what? I'm going to find the column with the following name. S 0101 underscore C03 underscore 030 capital E. Let me find that column. Oh, where does this take me? It takes me right here to HE. Right, and so this is the column that we want. Let's extend the name. Here it is. Selected categories 65 years and over. Okay. So this is 03E, 03E. Here it is. Estimate male. Let me just make sure that this is the one we're looking for. We do need, oh, it seems like I actually mistakenly here. We need 02. So let's find next. 02, this is the percentages. So let's take a look. Okay, here it is. So if we read the estimated percentages for 65 years and older. So the column we need is going to be E and G. Okay? So once we have identified this column, EG, which is the percentage column, we're going to rename this seniors. All right, this is the percentage of seniors that we want. Let's right-click. Let's select the EG, and then we're going to right-click. We're going to copy this, and we're going to move it closer to where we need it. So I have just copied this. Let me come back all the way to the left. And right here, I'm going to click on C. I'm going to right-click, and then I'm going to insert the copied cells. And so we still have the total population. We have the seniors. We have the county. Here we go. So this is starting to look a little more legible for us. Let's do a quick save here, right? We're going to be using the GeoID code in order for us to connect to join this data set to the shape file of the county. And so we're going to be using the GeoID. But before that, we need to clean up this column slightly so that the code of the GeoID matches the shapefile code column as well. Okay, so we're going to continue to use the replace tool, and we're going to do a find and replace at this point, right? So we're going to find what? In the find what, I'm going to enter the code. Notice how we have all of these 05000 extra. We don't need that. We only really need the GeoID code. So we're going to find what? We're going to find 05 and then 5 zeros, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the US capitalized, right? So what we're going to do right now, we're going to leave the replace with blank. I want to show you something, right? And so what we're going to do now is replace all. Okay, so 58 replacements. Okay, interesting. But I want to point something out to you. Look at the field here, right? And so now we have the code, but these numbers are being considered digits for calculation. The software thinks that these numbers are similar to these numbers, where we can base off calculations. Nevertheless, this number is just a code, kind of like a telephone number or a zip code. We don't really need to do any calculations on it. So we need to tell the software that this is not a digit, but rather a text field, right? This column is a text field like this one. When a column is a text field, the letters are left justified, right? And so a number field will have the numbers to the right, called right justified. So we need to tell we need to tell the software that this is not a number for calculations, but rather a text field. So we're going to do a quick undo. Okay, so we're going to do the same. We're going to do a replace, right? And we're going to continue to replace. So from this column here, we're going to do the replace, and we're replacing that 05 and then the 5 zeros US. And what we're going to do is we're going to insert a single quotation mark right next to the enter or the shift button on your keyboard. We're going to enter a single quotation mark, and that's going to let the software know that these numbers, once we replace all, okay? So notice how they are now left justified because the software understands that these are texts. So I'm going to do a quick save here. We're almost done preparing. Okay, so in order for us to get this ready for ArcGIS Pro, we have to do a few more things, right? So first is we don't need row 2 anymore. Our software is going to be confused, right? When ArcGIS gets a hold of this table, they're not going to know what all of this is. And so we only really need the first column. So we're going to delete this, the first row. We're going to delete the second row. So now we should have a table that's looking a little neater for us. Okay. So let's save here. So this is really the data that we need. We're not going to need all of this. So what do we do in that case, right? Well, as we start to clean up our data, I'm going to select the E field, and then I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to go all the way to the right of the table. Holding down Shift, I'm going to select this field QQ, and then I'm going to right click. I'm going to delete all of these fields, right? And so look at how, oh, did I accidentally delete my, no, I'm good, right? So here we go. We have these 4 fields that we need. Save that. And we don't need anything else anymore. Now the table is a lot cleaner and easier to use. Now, before I move on here, I also just want to make sure that this spreadsheet, right? This spreadsheet has a very confusing number, so I'm going to double click and I'm just going to name it seniors because this is the data we really want, the senior data. Okay, so now I'm going to save this. I'm going to do File, Save As. I'm going to do a new table. And I'm going to navigate to the folder for my review tutorial, right? And so there it is, review tutorial. And I'm going to save this new table as seniors. And we're going to save it as Excel workbook, which is the .xlsx, right? Excel workbook. save. Okay. So we have now cleaned up our table. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to close my Excel. Okay, and then let me right click and refresh here. And here it is. Here is our seniors table that we extracted from this complicated tutorial. So let's take a pause here. We'll take a break, and then we'll do part 2 of the tutorial to start creating our thematic map.